The second part of the full Metal Alchemist collaboration in Final Fantasy Brave Exvius is here, guys. So we're going over King Bradley and Roy Mustang for you today. Thank you guys once again for the support. Patreon, as well as YouTube channel memberships, allow us to continue this fantastic channel for you guys. So King Bradley is popping in to FFBE, Fantastic Stardust Ray Chainer, for all of his main damage dealing skills. He's got a lot of girth for you guys, can do some cool stuff with 100% dodge build while maintaining 100% true dual wield. Also has a fantastic Trust Master reward to get your hands on, and I do believe that his TMR Moogle does actually come from the raid. It should be doing that anyways, and you can actually use a Prism Moogle if you guys have access to that to get this TMR, even if you're not pulling on this banner. So let's dive into it. What is it? It is King Bradley's eye patch. It is a hat, so most characters in the game are going to be able to wear this. It does give you 45 flat attack, so a decent amount. It's not like super TMR tier, but it's up there. It's the typical amount of attack you'd see for a normal TMR attack hat, and it comes with King Bradley's eye patch here, 10% physical evasion. So you're gonna be able to do a lot of cool stuff with this. You're gonna make evasion builds with this hat. You're gonna be able to do evasion damage dealing builds with this hat. You're gonna be able to do a lot of cool stuff. So this is gonna be something that stands out over anything else in FFBE, because every other hat in the game and every other hat in the foreseeable future is only maxing out at 5%. This is going to be 10%, so you're going to be able to do some weird and wonky builds with the King Bradley's eye patch. So keep an eye on that one. That is going to be a prime Trust Moogle, or not a Trust Moogle, but a Prism Moogle target for you guys there. So you can go ahead and get that without even getting your hands on him. And if you do get him, definitely get the TMR, even if you don't plan on using King Bradley. His STMR is the Sword of Wrath here. A little bit of a spoiler. It's a one-handed sword, 176 attack with the effect of Wrathful Soul, which gives you 30% attack, 30% defense. Isn't really anything super crazy here. Just a strong sword. You know, you can go for it. You can go for it if you want to. I don't really suggest that you need to do it because his TMR is so good. Even if you're using him as a 7-star character, his super TMR doesn't really add a whole lot else to him because he is true dual wield, and you're going to be able to hit that attack percent cap pretty easy, whether or not you have that extra little bit from his super TMR there. So a lot of other options for you to be using when you're using King Bradley. Now, talking about the rest of his weapon selections, he has daggers, swords, spears, guns, and fist weapons there. So he actually, for players, has a decent amount of free weapons that are strong. Right? We have Longinus, Quicksilver. We also have the Tiger Fangs. These all come from Trial, so you can wear all of them, and access to the plethora of different swords that he has. And daggers, if you have some of the super TMR daggers like Master Bond Zahn's super TMR, very nice for him with that 30% dodge, to couple with his hat, 10% more right there. You have 40% with those two weapons. Armor selection, hats, helms, clothing, and light armor. Now we're going to move into his special skills here, his actual activated abilities. He's going to have, for the first couple of his abilities, skills that have an extra effect if you use it after a cooldown called Ultimate Eye. All right, so this is going to be something that you can do here. Extra Sensory Strike is going to be a skill, doesn't really do any damage. None of these first couple of skills actually do that strong of a damage. The real effect that you're looking at is after you use Ultimate Eye. Now remember, the way that these skills work is the turn you use Ultimate Eye and the turn after you use Ultimate Eye, these skills will be upgraded. So you use Ultimate Eye, the first skill is going to be able to copy status effects that are attack, defense, magic, or spirit buffs from the enemy to King Bradley. So this is going to not be super insane, but if there ever comes up bosses who have like really strong buffs that you can take off of them and put on King Bradley, such as like a 300% spirit buff from the new Aigeon, you'll be able to actually copy that and put him on King Bradley. He's going to be pretty powerful in those niche circumstances with that technique. Infiltration Tactics is going to allow him to have a 70% attack and defense break for 3 turns to an enemy, as well as Diversionary Tactics, a 70% magic and spirit break for 3 turns to an enemy. So if you want him to, he can be a temporary breaker for you while chaining with Stardust Ray there. We have Disabling Stab, which is going to do a little bit of damage, and then the main thing to take away is that it's going to give Merciless Strike, one of his go-to damage dealing skills, a 1.5 times multiplier, and Merciless Strike is actually going to benefit from this triple of the effect there because of the way that we'll see what Merciless Barrage here actually benefits from it in that way. I messed all that up. Basically, it's got an ignore 50% in there one time, and it's broken down into a backloaded and front-loaded skill, so it's going to be a 4.5 times multiplier. I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry, but we're moving on. 4.5 times multiplier basically is what this is going to give you. That's what you're using it for if you want to. Now we have Charge Stab here. The upgraded effect is going to be 100% in peril for 5 turns to the enemy. All right, the base effect is going to be an 80% in peril. You won't be using this one that often because the next one, Conductive Stab, is going to be a 120% in peril for you instead of that 100%. So this is going to be something that you're really going to be doing. Conductive Stab's better. Charge Stab has that damage over time ability associated with it, and those just aren't that good. If you want the Imperil, you're going with Conductive Stab if you need that Imperil for the Imperil alone. Obscuring Stab here, the upgraded effect from Ultimate Eye, is going to be another 1.5 times multiplier for Merciless Barrage. So that's going to be total 4.5 like we said before. So you can get both of those off, and it's going to be a total of 9.0 multiplier while those abilities are giving you that upgraded thing. We also have Disorienting Stab, which yet again has another 1.5 times multiplier increase to Merciless Barrage. So total another 4.5 right there. The other effect that it does do Stardust Ray Chaining, just like all the other ones. Comes with random status ailments and other stuff of that nature. We haven't really talked about that. These all do that for the most part. They have random other effects. We've talked about the best parts of the skill. Anything that we've left out is just something that isn't going to work on bosses, or it's going to be a low multiplier. You're pretty much using it for the Merciless Barrage buff there. So keep that in mind as well. Now we also do have his activated skills going down from his 6-star form into a 7-star form. The last of his skills here, he does have dual cast right away at 6-star, and we also have Merciless Barrage. So this skill right here, physical damage 3.5 times multiplier with consecutive damage increase, goes up to an 8.0 after you use it 3 times, so not very hard to get it up there. That's for the first 9 hits. The final hit is going to be a 3.5 times mod, ignore 50% defense. So this is why those multiplier buffs go in here 3 times, once on the first part and 2 times on the second part because of the ignore 50%. So that's where that 1.5 times mod goes up to a 4.5. This is a Stardust Ray Chaining skill. Now moving into his 7-star skills, he's got 4 cooldown skills. One of them is a Magnus ability, but this Magnus ability actually has a cooldown associated with it. We have Ultimate Eye itself. So this skill right here kind of soft locks him into lightning because it's a 5-turn cooldown available on turn 1. And why does it soft lock him into lightning? It's because it unlocks the upgraded versions of all of those skills we went over beforehand, all those multiplier increases, right? We talked about how strong those multiplier increases are, 4.5 each. If you want to stack them up, 4.5 plus 4.5 plus 4.5, 13.5 times multiplier increase right there for you. So it's going to give you a 250% attack buff, 5-turn lightning imbue, 3 stacks of mirage, and it's going to enable supersonic assault, which is going to be his triple cast, and he does start with triple cast available on turn 1. We will go over his opening rotation as well, like we talk about at the end of the character review, so don't worry about that. But that triple cast unlocked on 1 is going to be pretty powerful for him. Now we have Furious Bloodbath, 5-turn cooldown available on turn 3. It will only ever single cast, even if you're dual wielding, so you can't like make this skill go off a whole bunch here. But what it's going to do, it's going to be basically it's going to be a damage over time ability. It's going to do 3 damage over time abilities for 3 turns to 3 random targets. It can target the same guy 3 times. That's not really what we're using this skill for. We're using this skill for the multiplier increase to Merciless Barrage, 2.0 multiplier for 3 turns to the enemy, and or 3 turns to the caster. This is going to be a 6.0 multiplier increase overall. This is going to be one of his better ways to get that multiplier increase if you're looking for that. Now, this isn't building a chain. It's not doing any sort of real damage because damage over time effects just really aren't that insane. It's going to do decent ones, and I don't believe that this is actually going to stack because it should be the same sort of debuff ID. So if you're going against a single boss and you just Furious Bloodbath, I do not believe that these 3 different dots are actually going to stack. They're going to be like Kaito. Remember, Kaito has all of the different dots, and you can't stack the same dot on the enemy over and over and over. You have to stack all of his different dots. So that is going to hamper this ability a lot there. So you're not really looking at it for the damage like we were saying there. Now, Philosopher's Stone Core, which is something else that he has, 5-turn cooldown available on turn 3, 250% attack buff, 10 times multiplier, hurts himself for 31% of his own HP. It's going to give you a 2.5 times multiplier increase to Merciless Barrage. So that's going to be a 7.5 times multiplier increase right there. And it's also going to unlock Supersonic Assault Okay, and on top of that, it's going to still be that Stardust Ray chaining skill. So very strong, but like we said, low multiplier 10.0. He's got a lot of stuff that buffs up multipliers for that Merciless Barrage. That's what you're going to be doing the first couple of turns, and then he's going to go ham with Merciless Barrage. Then we have his Magna / Coolant ability. You can only use it 2 times per battle, and you cannot use it until turn 5. It's a 5-turn cooldown, available on turn 5. 20 times multiplier with HP sacrifice 51%, so you're going to lose 51% of your health. And then it's going to do another 20 times multiplier with ignore 50% defense. So its base multiplier is going to be 60 times multiplier. It's going to give him 10 stacks of Mirage, which is huge. He's going to be able to get that 10 stack Mirage. And we've also talked about how it's pretty easy to build him 100% evasion while maintaining just all attack gear. So he's going to be AoE evasion, or not AoE evasion, he's going to have evasion for himself, he's going to have Mirage for himself, so he's going to be able to be very survivable against a lot of physical attacks that way. He also, on top of that, will counter up to 5 times with a counter attack with a 10 times multiplier there, and this also does chain Stardust Ray. So Ouroboros of Wrath, very strong skill there. Now let's go into his passive abilities and we'll take a look at his limit burst for you guys. So he does have base dual wield. His Trustmaster ability gives him 30% attack, 30% HP, auto cast superhuman abilities, which we'll talk about at the start of the battle, gives him 50% true dual wield, and gives him ×2 chance to counter attack. As far as the rest of his passives, you'll see here, he wants a sword, he gets 40% attack from a sword there, and you'll see he's got 150% true dual wield. So if you have like Aloha Lastwell Super TMR, this is where it comes in handy here, because you can wear 2 Aloha Lastwell Super TMRs, get 50% dodge from that, and still cap out 200% true dual wield right then and there. He also has a bunch of attack percents on top of that, 20, 20, 20, 30, 30, 30, 20, a lot of attack passes up in this. I almost said something, you know, I almost said something, but he's got like 150% attack passives, got some HP passives, got some defense passives, lacking a little bit on the spirit side. He's got a couple of them, but not a whole lot, like 20% spirit right there. He also has a bunch of human killer, and he's got a human killer buff for himself, which is pretty big. So he comes in with 100% base human killer. Then he's got 2 special buffs. He's got a skill where he will buff himself with a 100% human killer buff when his HP drops below 70%. And this will only happen one time. If you die, this will reset. He also has a 100% machine killer buff that'll activate when his HP drops below 50%. Now remember, we went over some skills, right, where he hit himself for certain amounts of HP. And it kind of seemed like a drawback, but really what they're here for is to proc these activated, well, they proc these abilities, these passives of his. So that skill that hit him for 51% of his HP, Ouroboros of Wrath, that's going to proc both of those killers. So if you're fighting a machine, this is going to proc your machine killer buff. This is going to proc your man-eater buff. So it's kind of like a special little hidden effect in that Magnus ability for you right there. Philosopher's Core, if you use this on turn 1, if you want to, that's going to drop you 31% HP, which is going to put you below the threshold for these special skills to activate, because it's going to put you at 69% exactly. So a very nice little tie-in there to get that extra human killer buff. And if you guys don't know, yes, buffs in combat, this is an in-combat buff, do stack with and go above the 300% gear and materia and passive cap. So if you have him set up for 300% human killer with a human killer materia and his passives and Diablos and stuff, this is going to take you to 400% just doing his normal rotation. So he's going to absolutely massacre humans and machine type monsters. He also has 50% camouflage. He does come in with an innate 40% evasion, so very easy there. And this is what we're talking about with the Aloha Lastwell's TMR. Aloha Lastwell's TMR gets you that 200% true dual wield, very easy. And each of those TMRs are going to give you 25% dodge each. So that's 50% from your 2 accessory slots, coupled with his base 40% evasion that puts you at 90%. And then in your head slot, you're wearing his TMR that is 100% dodge, 100% attack, with just wearing it 2 Aloha Lastwell TMRs in his hat. He hits cap on both, which makes him pretty awesome. You're not sacrificing really any sort of attack that way, and you're not compromising yourself to build him in any weird fashion or function. That's just what you're doing, and you're paying off in dividends that way. You'll never have to worry about taking physical damage as long as it can be dodged. And if it can't be dodged, he's got 10 stacks of Mirage that are going to talk real bad to that boss. So very cool character here. He does have also chances to counter with punishing insubordination there, double counter chance. And he also increases his resistance to attack, defense, magic, and spirit break when his HP drops below 70%. So this is something else that'll activate with his cooldown skill. He's immune to Charm, Confusion, Petrify, Blind, and Sleep. You're going to feel the wrath of this character. All right, he does have base True Dual Wield. He does have the True Dual Wield 6x multiplier cap, 100% High Tide, and then he's got that activated ability that's going to activate on its own with superhuman abilities at the start of the battle. Superhuman abilities is going to allow you to start with that triple cast. His counter attack is going to be that counter attack Divine Ruination we talk about. So monster in the arena, 100% dodge, True Dual Wield master, all of that cool stuff. Very cool character here. And the final thing to talk about is his limit burst. It's going to give him a 300% attack buff for 1 turn, followed by a 200% attack buff for 3 turns. It's going to be a 10.05 multiplier with ignore 50% defense to all enemies. It's going to innate 4 physical attacks for 2 turns to the caster, and it's going to give him supersonic assault. So when are you going to cast this skill? This limit burst here is not here for damage at all. It's not here for damage. You do not want to level it up. All that changes, you get a very small multiplier increase. 9.0, ignore 50% at level 1. 10.05, ignore 50% at max level. All you're using this for is if you want to have this big meaty 4 stacks of barrage on demand and you're running out of your Magnus abilities to do that, you're going to use this to get that for you right there. And it's going to re-unlock your triple cast as well. So as far as a innate rotation of what you want to do with him, remember he's going to be semi-locked to light, or lightning, excuse me. So you don't need any sort of weird elemental equipment on him. You can go ahead and use your different weapons and pieces of gear that have your killer equipment on him. He's going to be able to wear the sword from Dark Visions as well, 220 attack sword. You can wear those different weapons we talked about at the start of the video. So what are you going to try to be doing with him at the start of the battle? Remember, you do have innate triple cast available right away. So if you want to proc your human killer ability, get this Merciless Barrage ready to go, you're going to go ahead and use Philosopher's Stone Core. If you want your human killer set up, that's going to give you your 250% attack buff right away. You can go ahead and use Furious Bloodbath to set up Merciless Barrage as well if you want that 2.0 multiplier buff right there. And then you're going to want to use Ultimate Eye. Definitely most of the time you're always using Ultimate Eye to get Supersonic Assault, to get that Lightning Imbue for 5 turns, and to get that 250% attack buff. So you have your choices there between those 3 main skills. If you don't want to say use Philosopher's Core, you want to save that human killer buff for later, and that multiplier buff for later so you can burst an enemy down. You'll forego that on turn 1, so you can use Ultimate Eye, Furious Bloodbath. And remember, because you use Ultimate Eye, on the first turn you're going to be able to pick from Disorienting Stab, Obscuring Stab, Conductive Stab, Charge Stab, Disabling Stab, Diversionary Tactics, Infiltration Tactics, Extra Sensory Strike of your choice. If you're not using these different abilities up here for the breaks, which 9 times out of 10 a lot of you guys are not going to be doing that, you're going to go ahead up here. If you want to save your cooldown skills, you're going to be activating Obscuring Stab, you're going to be activating Conductive Stab to get these you're going to be this big 120% lightning apparel. You're going to be activating Disabling Stab for the 1.5 times multiplier buff. So you're going to be able to get 1.5 here, you're going to be able to get 1.5 here if that's your choice. And then the next turn, while you still have triple cast, you can go on ahead and still use the upgraded abilities. You can go on ahead and get another 1.5 times multiplier buff from these unlocked skills. And then you can go on ahead and use Furious Bloodbath and start doing damage with Merciless Barrage. So you have that Lightning Imbue, you have that Lightning ability from the Imperil from your unlocked skill, a couple 1.5 times multiplier increases, which remember we talked about them being 4.5 times multiplier increases. Very strong. Get that Furious Bloodbath. The dot's going to be there, but it's really there for the 2.0 Merciless Barrage. And you're going to have 4.5, 4.5, 4.5 multiplier increase, 6.0 multiplier increase. Then if you've used Philosopher's Stone Core, 2.5, which is a 7.5 multiplier increase on top of the base version of Merciless Barrage, and you're just going to start going to town, doing damage, 100% dodge, 100% or 200% True Dual Wield monster, just doing this. You're just going to be unleashing your wrath on the boss with our boy King Bradley. A little bit of spoiler there, but you know, FMA fans, you know what I'm talking about. So he's here to lay down the smack. King Bradley, maybe a little bit confusing, but you're just gonna go in there, unlock your abilities with your triple cast, use 2 of your new awakened skills that are enhanced. And next turn, you're gonna just go in there the same thing, and just while you're doing that, you're still doing Stardust Ray, you're still chaining, you're still doing damage. He's just a fantastic character. If you're a fan of Full Metal Alchemist, he's gonna be very, very cool for you. And he's got that small little bonus of being able to build 100% evasion while doing all of his damage. No one's going to put a touch on him, which I think is super cool. No one's going to put a touch on him. No one's going to lay their hands on King Bradley, which fits the anime to a T. So that is super awesome. I love the way they put him into the game. Well done, I want to say, with his character design there. Now, moving away from King Bradley over to Roy Mustang real quick. If you've seen anyone use Crown Prince Noctis, if you've seen anyone use Regina, Roy Mustang is going to work the same way as those characters, except he is going to be a mage version of those characters. So he's going to have that pentacast ability where he charges up, releases a damage skill, and then he's going to release his limit burst the turn after that, and then he's going to charge up, release his damage skill, limit burst, charge up, limit burst, damage, you know, the same sort of thing. So very strong character. Let's talk about him right here. Roy's Pyrotech's Gloves. TMR here, 52 magic with the effect of Keep Dry for Roy only, which is going to give him 20% magic on top of that and 30% fire resistance. Not really that good for anyone outside of Roy. For Roy, it's pretty good. So if you want to put this on him, you're going to have a lot of fun there. His S-Team is Ishbal's Hero, 60% magic, 80% fire resistance, 50% Demon Killer with magic. So the primary thing that makes this thing pretty cool is the Demon Killer. Outside of that, it's kind of a run-of-the-mill Mage Super TMR. Doesn't really stand out. You don't really need to go out and get it, kind of like King Bradley's. If you get it, cool. If you don't, cool. So, and I think I like it even a little bit less. Now, I like it just as less as I like King Bradley's for a Super TMR. So it does stand out with the Demon Killer. Demon Killer is going to be helpful, but it's only for mages. It's not for physical and magic damage dealers at the same time. So maybe for waiting for dark visions, you want some more Demon Killer there. Weapon selection, he's got access to guns, staves, rods, and daggers. Armor selection, he has hats, clothing, light armor, and robes. And let's get into his kit here. Combustion, this is going to be his version of Regina's cannon. It's a fire magic damage, 1.0 multiplier with ignore 50% spirit, and auto cast the next turn. It's going to give you a 150% limit burst damage buff. So this 1.0 multiplier might look really low, but he's going to be getting a bunch of different multiplier increases, just like Regina does, just like Crown Prince Noctis does with all of his other stuff. He has Fire Transmutation Circle, gives him a self 200% magic attack buff, and it's going to give him a 3.0 multiplier to Combustion. He's going to have Blaze Transmutation Circle, Defense and Spirit buff, a multiplier increased to Combustion of 3.0, guys. So same sort of syndrome right here. Each of these skills that we're talking about, they also will increase his limit burst by 25. So you're going to be casting 4 of these skills into Combustion with his Pentacast every single turn. He's got a Fire, Wind, and Light Resist buff of 65. That also increases the multiplier by 3.0. He can give himself Auto Revive, also increases the multiplier by 3.0. Penta Flame Alchemy, this is his Pentacast. You can use each skill one time, just like Regina, just like Noctis. And then he's going to have his killer buff. So he's got a 150% human killer buff with an 8.0 a multiplier increase, 150% demon killer buff with an 8.0 multiplier increase, 150% beast killer buff with an 8.0 multiplier increase. Human, demon, and beast, that fits FMA quite well, so I like the little theme there. Purifying Flames cures his magic break and is a 12.0 multiplier increase here. Then he's got his 2 cooldown skills, Turn to Ash, available on turn 1 for turn cooldown, 120% fire and peril for him, his enemies, all of them, 250% magic buff, and a 22.5 times multiplier increase to Combustion. Spark of Liberation is his other cooldown skill, make himself immune to magic break, 100% fire resist buff for himself, and a 22.5 times multiplier buff for Combustion. Now remember, all these multipliers we just talked about, the 22.5s, the 12s, the 8s, the 3s. Remember, this Combustion skill has ignore 50% spirit on it, so you double all of those multiplier increases effectively. So these are going to be, 45 times multiplier buffs down here. So this is 45, this is 45, that makes it 90. This is another 24, so that makes it 114. This is 8, so you times 2, and then you add them all together, you have like 130 times multiplier chain finish attack with Combustion. His passives here, his trust ability, defense and HP 30%, ignore fatal damage 100% when HP is above 1%, max 1 time, and 100% true double hand magic. So his trust ability needs to be activated unless you're going true dual wield on him for that extra magic if you have that gear. He doesn't have any sort of native true dual wield though, but he does have 150% true double hand magic, a bunch of magic passives, a little bit of HP, defense, and spirit passives. He is a mage. He's not super thick. He's not super tanky. He's your traditional mage. He does have 50% base demon killer. He's got 100% chance, like we talked about, this trust ability to activate guts. He has 60% fire and dark resist. He's immune to blind, confusion, petrify, and stop. And he also has 10% MP recovery per turn. Now his limit burst is the Flame of Alchemy. 8-hit skill. You're gonna have to like chain weave this into a pre-existing chain. It's not gonna chain, I believe, with another Roy Mustang. So that's just one difference with Regina. So you're going to always kind of want to be chain finishing Roy Mustang. You want to chain finish his combustion skill. You want to kind of chain weave / chain finish Flame Alchemy. You just need to do that to do damage with him. It does cost 100 limit burst gauge crystals, but remember, all of those different skills that buff combustion and have those secondary effects like the killer skills, his cooldown skills, all of that stuff also gives you 25 LB crystals guaranteed per skill you use in your pentacasting. You're using 4 of those every turn, so you're going to auto fill up his limit burst, and then you're going to use combustion. So he's always filling his limit burst up every turn you're using combustion, and it's going to be a 48 times multiplier base, and he does have 150% limit burst damage. So he's going to hit pretty hefty with that limit burst. Now, how good is he? His multipliers look good, but remember, he is a mage, so he's going to suffer in a couple of ways compared to someone like Regina, like Crown Prince Noctis. He doesn't have weapon variants. You know, he's not doing physical damage. So he does have like a 48 times multiplier, but this is, you know, the equivalent of like a 32 times multiplier if you're using a gun weapon on a physical damage dealer, like a true double hand Regina. Keep that in mind there as well. And on top of that, he does have the traditional mage weaknesses. He doesn't have a lot of access to a bunch of killers as materia or on espers. They're harder to come by on mages. He's also going to be eternally locked to fire. So they did buff him up a little bit here, gave him some multiplier increases on his different skills. He's going to be able to do some cool stuff for you. He's going to be able to chain finish, do some good damage with his LB, do some good damage with combustion. But between King Bradley and Roy Mustang, and then the other banner that we talked about with Alphonse and Alphonse and Edward Elric, I can't get that out, too hard to pronounce. He's probably the weakest of the 4 characters, in my opinion. Edward is an insane physical damage dealer. Bradley's an insane physical damage dealer with that coolness factor of dodging everything. Alphonse is a fantastic tank. Roy Mustang is just a good chain finishing mage. I am a little bit one of those guys. I just dog on mages because they have those innate weaknesses, and it's not till later on I've made a couple of videos of some of the newer mages that are coming out in JP where they kind of get rid of those weaknesses. We're still there. We still have those mage weaknesses where mages, they have to be used in fights with lower spirit. Now, talking about that, I did dog on Roy. There are going to be fights out there, Dark Visions, where you're going to want to be doing big damage in one turn. Some of them are going to demand you use a mage. Now, I'm not super excited for him though, because not only does Dark Visions have this physical damage dealer for some fights, magic damage dealer for some fights thing going on, but on top of that, it has an elemental factor going on, where you want to be able to switch up the elements of the damage that you're doing, and he's always going to be locked to fire damage. Combustion's always fire, and his limit burst is always fire. So even if you're using him in Dark Visions on these low spirit targets that want to be dealt magic damage, you won't always be able to use him. It's not you might not always be able to use him. You won't always be able to use him because the element factor plays such a role in Dark Vision. So I'm going to give him as a future-proof rating. And as more as I review these characters, I'm reviewing them with Dark Visions in mind because it's coming out. They already said, I think they said April, it's coming out. So we've been talking about for a while. If you want to see more stuff on Dark Visions, check it out in the channel. Subscribe for more information. But King Bradley, super cool character, fantastic design. Roy has a fantastic design too. I like how he works. It's kind of how he works, right? Combustion is like the finger snap, right? You do a little bit of damage with the finger snap, and then the big explosion comes out, like a delayed explosion the next one with those limit bursts. Pretty cool design. I like it as well. As a character, though, doesn't stand out. Between the two of these, if you're going for either of the characters, as always, if you're a fan of FMA, grab your favorites. That's the rule number 1. You're here to have fun. They're both going to be pretty powerful, worth your resources. If you're a FMA fan, you're going to be able to put them to good use. Be sure to pick up King Bradley's eye patch, though, even if you're not pulling on the banner. If you have a spare Prism Moogle, it's going to be one of the best things you can Prism Moogle. If I don't randomly get him with some of those 10 pulls going on, I'm probably going to be Prism Moogling that myself. It's just that good, guys. So this is going to be it for today for the banner review for King Bradley. Come and check us out on twitch.tv where we play FFBE. Other games we'll be playing RE3 Remake, War of the Visions, FF7 Remake. We just have a good time. Sometimes just chatting. We're hanging out with the community. Always a fantastic experience there. Subscribe for more on the YouTube channel. Thank you guys for the support, and I'll see you guys in the next one.